Hello there. Welcome back to the Immortal Empire's news cycle. I'm your host, Andy Pride, and new details have been made available regarding the dedicated splinter factions like Sigvald, Grombrindal, Vlad, and Isabella, and of course, Bellacor the Dark Master will be making his debut in the combined campaign as a legendary lord for the Warriors of Chaos. Very interesting point there, that our sweetest prince is being classified as a warrior and not a Demons of Chaos lord, but functionally, I'm not sure it's really going to matter all that much, because he's the only Warriors of Chaos lord that can create armies of only demons and will be incorporating his own versions of monogod mechanics into his own subfaction. So, a couple important points to raise here. Bellacor will indeed begin his campaign on Albion, but it won't be in the Citadel of Lead, the fortress he finds himself imprisoned in early lore. He'll actually start in the Isle of Wights, which if I remember correctly is the settlement just south of Conquata, so he'll need to consolidate his holding from a position of relative weakness in that he doesn't own the capital city of his own province. Still, he's one of the strongest legendary lords we have ever seen, incredible caster, mass murderer with the Lore of Shadows, and monstrous duelist that can also fly, regen, and has some incredibly powerful abilities. And instead of utilizing the customized Daniel the Demon Prince mechanics, he'll have a unique combination of unholy manifestations, the ability to mark and corrupt enemy lords, and chaotic gifts. And these tie into some new details about the Warriors of Chaos rework that will launch alongside the assumed Chaos Champion DLC in August. It sounds like he'll be able to recruit both warrior and demonic units, although demons will more than likely be the main focus in terms of his skill tree and mechanics, and his unholy manifestations will each be tied to a specific god, unlocked by defeating an army aligned with each deity, or by sacrificing souls, which is a new resource available to all Warriors of Chaos lords. So, if you beat a Tzeentch character like Kairos, Egrim von Horseman, or Village the Curseling, the Tzeentch ability will become available, allowing you to spawn a unique Shadow Rift in the local province that you can then use to teleport across the world and invade empires far aflung. Each marked manifestation will also grant additional demonic units of that god, but whether that means adding them to a limited pool of recruitment or physically gifting you already recruited armies, I'm not really sure. Bellacor's Shadow sounds like a really cool feature. It will play out a lot like Nakari's marks on defeated lords, but once a human character has been passively corrupted, he can eventually turn them into a recruitable lord-level demon prince for use in his own armies. I have a feeling that will only be available for use against generic characters. I'm not sure CA is going to be on board with letting players turn Karl Franz into a pimp named Slickback, deviant of Slaanesh, but frankly, I think that would be really freaking sick if it also worked against legendary lords. It's only going to be human characters, so you're already working with a limited roster anyway, but realistically, it is probably only going to be generics. Apparently, Bellacor has additional unique mechanics that have not been shared yet, but the final one in this blog post is Chaotic Gifts, which utilize souls as a spendable currency to unlock upgrades for warrior units and grant demonic reinforcements. So in all likelihood, the more souls you gather from killing things and conquering settlements, the more powerful the rewards, and the more powerful demons you can summon, with Soul Grinders and Greater Demons becoming the last available pickups. But yeah, definitely surprised about which faction he will technically be a part of here. Seems like Creative Assembly might have some limitations in adding new lords to the Demons of Chaos Undivided faction, simply because of that Create Your Own Lord feature. So we might not ever get additional lords added to Daniel's faction. That might be Daniel's and Daniel's alone. And it's true, Bellacor is a named character for the Warriors of Chaos and Demons of Chaos in 8th edition, in the same way that Demon Princes are playable in both armies as well, but still, it's a bit surprising. I did expect him to end up as a Demon Lord and not a Warriors Lord, but again, functionally, not sure it's going to matter. Sounds like the Warriors of Chaos will now have limited access to demonic units as well, so there will be some blending between the rosters, albeit in a limited capacity, and it would not shock me if that carries over in some aspects to the mono gods as well, which I think is reasonable. It's not like Archaon the Everchosen should be stuck using only OG Day 1 Warriors of Chaos stuff. He's the big dog of Chaos. He should be able to occasionally bind some big-ass scary warp monsters to his will. By that same token, Sigvald the Magnificent is now leading his own subfaction, aptly named the Decadent Host. They will begin their playthrough in the northwestern Chaos Wastes, although a specific settlement is not named thus far, so I would guess somewhere near where the Ag Holes start. Those goddamn Ag Holes. And he can now seduce units, use seductive influence, and recruit Slaaneshi demons, which is great. And I think that answers the question that he is not being moved to Mono God Slaanesh, but will instead borrow units from their roster and borrow some of their campaign mechanics as well. So he will technically still be within the purview of the Warriors of Chaos roster, but he's going to have a lot of the flavor of Slaanesh, and that's really the only thing that actually matters. Which also likely means the fourth unknown character in that Champions of Chaos Lord pack probably will not be undivided like Kron the Conqueror, not that I wanted him anyway, he literally just looks like Archaon Light, but will instead be a true Slaaneshi champion. T'Challa, Azazel, or Strickar of the Sword's Veneer seem like the likely go-tos. We've talked about that before. Kind of figured that'd be the case anyway, but with Sigvald not technically moving to Slaanesh, while still getting all the benefits of doing so, makes it seem like Slaanesh will get another Warriors of Chaos character. Depending on what new units they get in the upcoming 4 Champions Lord pack, I can see a situation where Sigvald becomes one of the first characters that players look to replay. He was my first campaign all the way back in Warhammer 1. It was a somewhat underwhelming experience, but he is going to be a lot more fun to play now. And by extension, Kholek is getting the VIP treatment too, splintering off into the Heralds of the Tempest subfaction, which will begin its campaign north of the Mountains of Morn, a location that will put an immense amount of pressure on the Ogre Kingdoms and their subfactions, because Dragon Ogres are simply a hard counter to a huge portion of their roster. In fact, I'm not even sure they have the ability to defeat a Kholek Doomstack in open battle or in sieges once he gets that ball rolling. It is going to get pretty brutal once he gets a full stack of Dragon Ogres and Shaggus. But enough about Chaos. There are other factions getting some long-awaited lovin', and no love can come between the eternal Vlad von Carstein and his lovely necrotic flame Isabella. Little known lore fact, the reason Vlad doesn't have a nose in Warhammer 2 is because he likes to hide it inside Isabella's butt. Huge bombshell on the way for this vampire power couple. They're now playable within the same campaign. If you pick Vlad, Isabella becomes a legendary hero. If you pick Isabella, Vlad becomes a legendary hero. And that's something we've been asking for pretty much since Izzy was added as free LC all the way back in February of 2017. Fantastic change, should make both them a lot more fun and thematic, although it doesn't seem we have confirmation on their star positions as of yet. They share a faction now called Sylvania, and considering the seat of Sylvania is Castle Drakenhof, they may be there, or they may stay in Schwarzhofen if Manfred doesn't move. We'll talk more about that in a moment. CA's been a bit cagey with some of the details here though, just to continue that drip feed I guess, and so they don't spoil the star position reveals that will continue dropping over the next several weeks. Hellman Gorst is also moving, leading the caravan of blue roses, in reference to the fungus plague that took his 4 brothers and father, and those same brothers have been returned to unlife and now pull the corpse cart with 800 charge bonus that he Tokyo drifts into battle, because family is the only thing that matters. He's being moved somewhere eastwards in order to be closer to the fortress of Nagashi Zar, but whether that means Pigbarter, the Darklands, the Mountains of Morn, Ind, Koresh, or Cathay, how far eastwards, we're not sure yet. Your guess is as good as mine. If he were to truly begin close to Nagashi Zar, he'd begin his campaign close to Emmerich and the southern edge of the Chaos Dwarf Empire. But it might feel a bit weird if Gorst is better positioned to take control of Nagashi's home base than Arkan himself. As for the other 2 major changes highlighted today, Grombrindal the White Dwarf now leads the Ancestral Throng, because, you know, the Thong is mustard, and true to what many of you were saying, he is indeed looking for vengeance against Malekith and those treacherous Dark Elves up in Nagaroth. He is a dwarf after all, so he'll need to be in the mountains, which means either near Grond and the Convent of Sorcerers, north of Malekith, or west of the capital, a bit north of DJ Kata. Super cool start for the dwarfs there, though. Very glad to finally get away from the Greenskin Tide and Eshin Swarms you deal with in pretty much every single dwarf campaign on the Silver Road of Karazak-Karak. So to see Gromby get his own faction, far aflung somewhere else, fighting Dark Elves, fighting Tomb Kings, that should be a blast. And finally, we have Volkmar the Grim leading the Cult of Sigmar into the Southlands at Sudenburg, the Imperial Penal Colony, to seal away the abominable books of Nagash, so confirmation what his unique mechanic will be, which means you'll be close to Tic-Tac-Toe, Arkan, the Black Pyramid of Nagash, and the Necrarch Brotherhood Vampires. There's a big hint here for both himself and Manfred von Carstein. Both will be chasing after the books of Nagash, but unlike the Tomb Kings and Vampires, Volkmar will gain zeal and boons from sealing them away, rather than necromantic power from using their dark secrets. That's a big hint for Manfred's star position as well, because it basically confirms he's moving to the Southlands Bowl too. That's not 100% yet, but it's difficult to gain control of the Books of Nagash, with most of them in and around Nahakara if you're starting up in Sylvania or somewhere else. And of course for Volkmar, there is a lot of history there in his rivalries with the undead, because even though he is very much an anti-chaos character, and the Storm of Chaos was actually paraded around as a battle standard by, I believe, Bellacor when he was captured, he ultimately meets his fate in the end times, kidnapped by Arkan the Black, and sacrificed to raise Bone Daddy Nagash alongside Morgiana Le Fay from his eternal slumber. And when Big Daddy comes knocking, the whole of the Southlands is going to get even more wild, which is crazy to think about because it's already popping off. Anyway, Volkmar's back with a vengeance now, and may be entering into a race with Manfred to try to get those Books of Nagash first. I cannot remember if AI factions ever attempted to go after the Books of Nagash. I don't remember them ever doing that or seeing that myself, but maybe that will be changing in Immortal Empires, and frankly, that would be pretty interesting if Cetra and Katep, maybe not so much Katep because he's so far northwest, but Khalida, Cetra, Arkan, and it sounds like Manfred are all chasing after it while you're playing Volkmar, and you have to try to beat them to the punch. That is all the news for today. I believe the Skaven start position reveal will happen pretty soon after I finish this video. I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy. Maybe look out for Trash to move to Crookback Mountain. Other than that, we already knew Eshin was going to be in Cathay. Not going to blow my mind, so we'll probably cover that shortly in another video alongside a lot of other things once enough stuff is there to talk about. But for now, that is the news. A lot of stuff about Subfactions, a lot of stuff about the Splinter factions, and Bellacor the Dark Master is coming. He'll be starting in Albion as a Warriors of Chaos faction with access to a crap ton of demons. So, very excited to play as him. Very excited to try out a lot of these new starts. I think Sigvald's going to be awesome. Kholek has a really cool start position. Some really good changes here. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video. Any Pride, signing out for now. Have a good one, guys.